Hey guys, so I just made a little health update, and at the beginning I mentioned my looking. Now you'll notice I've started growing my hair out, and I've left my beard to grow to look the natural way that God intended me to look. We all have a natural image, a natural design, and we all interfere with it. And of course, when you're on your path of learning who you are, interfering with it is an expression of your persona, which is your personality, which is the Greek word for mask. So it's known for a long time that it's something you're masking your core self when you express that. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing all the time, but when I go into deep states of introspection and seeking God and trying to get close to God, I find I do this a lot. Now, last year, whilst I got sick and became weak, looking back on reflection, I think changing my image, etc., a little bit was an expression of my vulnerability. I felt very vulnerable and weak. I'm a man who's 6'3", and fear has not been an enemy of mine for a long time. I've learned to conquer that. And in fact, I've been working with a very powerful healer who is trying to allow me to feel fear, which is important. And I do feel it. I'm not pretending I'm some sort of stoic monster. But I don't allow myself to feel it as well as what I should. And that just comes from whatever overcompensation in my psyche of trying to deal with things. And it's a very interesting topic on its own and warrants its own video, but I think the alteration in my appearance is part of that, part of the fact I was feeling vulnerable because I was weak and because I felt quite defenseless at times. Then altering my image is an expression of your persona, your ego, trying to create sort of a fresh identity to mask that. And that's a very personal and deep part of myself that I've been exploring of late, and seeing what was going on with myself under the pressure of this sickness and the immense changes it brought to my life, from being an active, strong male to a male who is bedridden with sickness and reliant in a state of naturally forced humility on people around me, you know, to help me to even live, to eat, to get to the toilet on some days, etc. This is a very big change and a very big lesson for me in family and understanding the need for others, because I've often been a lone wolf as well. In my approach in life, I've been like that even before I was in Tanzania, due to personal circumstance, etc. However, to pull it back to the change of style, the change of image, the cutting my hair, etc. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it was me masking a vulnerable state. Now, what I notice is, many years ago, I used to always cut my hair, and I made a decision to dedicate my life to God. And I made that decision before I came to Tanzania. And strangely, when I made that decision, I felt a yearning in my core. It was after fasting. I felt an urge to leave my body alone. You know, just as I don't go out and try to manipulate these trees to look how I want them to look or think they should look, I accept. You know, I don't go around pruning them, etc. I accept that is the way that God intended them to be. Their own personal expression is what they will be. Now, I know people trim hedges, etc. I've got a hedge trimmed around this compound here. Not my doing. I would not do that. But a plant is a plant and a human is a human. And I had an internal yearning as I found my center that I should leave my body alone. And people would ask, why are you growing your hair long? And I'd say, honestly, the question is, why are you cutting it? Because I'm just simply not interfering with something natural, like my heart beating. I don't interfere with that. You know, I don't interfere with my liver processing the enzymes, etc. Sorry, my dogs came and I knew there was going to be chaos. So, we don't often interfere with our natural processes, as in internal workings. One thing we all do is cut fingernails. Now, I'd say that's probably, in some retrospect, something that we have to do, because they're very toxic and it's non-functional. You can't really use your hands if you leave them to grow and grow and grow. But hair doesn't make you non-functional if you leave it to grow. And I always wondered, how would I look if I didn't interfere? If my mind, my persona, my ego, my carnal mind, my thinking mind, not necessarily those ego, etc., but how would I look if I didn't interfere? And this arose naturally. Now, there's an ancient Christian teaching, it's actually predates Christianity, it's a teaching of the Torah, and it's a Nazirite vow. And the Nazirite vow was mentioned in the Bible. Now, in the Nazirite vow there are stipulations, and what happens, it says, when you dedicate, when you vow your life to God, you must not cut your hair, you must not cut your beard. But there are other rules as well. You must not drink alcohol. You must not even eat from a vine, actually, is what it says. So you can't eat grapes, etc. But I never drink alcohol anywhere. And I never will. It doesn't bring anything to my life whatsoever. It's only ever brought misery to the lives of people around me, from what I've seen, if I'm being very open and honest. Because I lived in a world where moderation wasn't present. I see people using it in moderation and they're very happy. So I'm not judging anybody here. But it's something I've never done. But what I noticed is, in understanding that I'm not the first human being to feel that. And obviously somebody in history who presented the concept of the Nazirite vow understood this as well. That somehow, when you truly go into a state of introspection, you don't want to think about your image. You don't want to think about what you're wearing, hence people wearing robes in the same outfit every single day when they are a monk, etc. Hence Buddhist monks, I guess, shaving their hair. They need not worry about their image, they just let it be. The singular, constant, same image. However, for me, shaving your head is counter to the natural image that God provided for you. And thus, I like to leave myself in a state to find God just like a tree growing, where the tree doesn't interfere with what it's going to look like, it just grows. It just does. I mean, they always are like that. They always, constantly just allow themselves to be what they are. All animals do the same. It's we humans who groom. Now, there's nothing wrong with grooming, there's nothing wrong with cleaning yourself up, etc. But I find when I really want to seek and commune and get close to God, like I have been these last months, automatically I'm drawn to not cutting my beard, not cutting my hair. And when I came to Tanzania, I'd made that vow. For all I didn't even know about the Nazirite vow at the time. I really did not know about it, I'm now aware, obviously. I'd made a vow to God that I was going to serve him until I felt I'd accomplished something worthwhile, because I felt that all I'd ever done is sin and disappoint him up until that point. And coinciding with that, I was a want to just leave my hair. It wasn't a thought of I'm going to grow my hair long, it was actually just a thought of, well, all I'm thinking of is my prayer, my focus, my center. Why would I start adding thoughts, concerns of my image? of cutting my hair, of making myself look societally acceptable. And I think it's very telling and a very interesting thing when you look at it and you see that we go out of our way to have hairstyles, etc. Now, I know a lot of people will say, but if you're not in a vow, then, and if you're going to reference Christianity, then it says that men should not have long hair. It also says that they shouldn't cut the side of their hair, and it also says they shouldn't mar their beard. But these are dated cultural in the time it was written, pagan tribes did those things to identify as that. And if you saw one in a city, you would know that's a person from a pagan tribe. Like my own ancestry, my DNA is Viking. So obviously I have pagan ancestry who cut their hairs in such way, and similar to how I had my hair cut last year and may have it cut again in future. But back in that time, it was an important thing to warn Israelites, to warn followers of God. Not to cut your hair like that, because you'll be misidentified. Likewise with tattoos, you'll be misidentified. Of course, culturally today, it's not the same thing. So it's by the by. In fact, back in the time, they used to measure their hair length with the palm of a hand. This was how long a man's hair should be, if you want to know some historical, cultural insight into hair length, etc. in that. But that's not what I'm getting at. And still today, you have churches who breach God's word with no regard whatsoever for what's written. Where God clearly states, you shall not add anything to my commandments, but they'll stop men coming to their church if they've got long hair. And that's adding to God's commandments, because he never did state that as a command. It was just a cultural thing. So anyway, that's off on a small tangent. I just think it's of interest to say that when we are always trying to hold an image and a style, I think it takes up space. And unless that image and style is already a completed person in a godly life, which none of us truly are, then it's okay to let go of it from time to time and just let it be free. Whilst you spend your energy not on holding on to the image of what you feel you should look like, but on aligning with God and letting the image that God made you become what you are. And if a man wants to grow a big beard, as many men are at the moment, I celebrate that as well. Because it's a celebration of the natural masculine state. It's how you were designed. It truly is, you know. And I know a lot of women have started embracing this, not necessarily related to spirituality or relationship with God, but just allowing their body hair to grow, etc. and saying, this is how I look, this is how I am. Now, societally that changed, and it's really got nothing, I think some of it's to do with societal pressure, but it actually began back in time with lice. It was why we started clearing our bodies of hair, because they were not serving the same purposes. We were clothed, we weren't hiding from the UV rays, we weren't men didn't need long beards to protect them from the elements, etc., and so on and so forth. And long hair to keep you warm in the northern hemispheres. Short-haired people tend to be in the southern hemispheres. You know, it's certainly in Africa. Most people have very short hair. So I see people understanding and celebrating their natural form, and I celebrate it too. But I celebrate it for another reason, not just for the sake of saying this is who I am, but for the sake of saying this is how God made me. And maybe there's a reason he made me that way. And maybe I should see it from time to time and just see myself in the image and likeness that God made me. Because somehow in doing that with your external, you kind of draw your internal to be there too. And certainly when you make these vows to be close to God, it's like a Nazirite vow, a soft one, without all the intense rules for me, where in letting go of your external appearance and giving that into the hands of God, you let go of the need to hold on to a persona in your image every day. And in doing that, you let go of the need for a persona deep within you. And within there, you can start becoming this blank canvas, which is where I draw closest personally to God, and I believe it's the same for everybody else too. When I hang on to the image of John, who did this, built shaitans, it's very hard to get as close to God as I want to. These last months I've released that as best I can, but it's difficult because I'm still having to fundraise and make videos, etc. But at least when I look in the mirror, unless my ego is tricking me and I'm creating a new image of a natural John, which I don't feel I am, I just let go. And I feel in doing so I let go of my persona a little. And I certainly let go of the image I was trying to hang on to last year, which was definitely born out of a state of vulnerability and trying to mask that with a change, which is very common for us humans, to alter appearances in times of trauma, etc. But I would put it out there for men. Maybe you want to draw close to God. Give it a go, at least once in your life, and take a look at how nature intended you to grow, just as those trees were intended to grow the way they look. Watch and see how you were supposed to look before you interfered with any sort of persona or carnal-minded influence of what you feel your image should be within our society. God bless, guys. Bye.